You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we are talking about medieval torture methods. So, Lauren?
Yes, Nora?
Let's get scary.
Hello.
It's been a minute since we recorded together.
It has been, this is the first time we're recording together in October.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is like we always say, oh my gosh, it's been so long. It has truly been so long since we've recorded together.
We did a really good job and did a lot of stuff ahead of time and got everything ready because I got married. So yeah, Joe and I finally got married on the 9th. So Nora and I knew that we would literally have no time to do anything.
Yeah.
So we was super productive and we recorded ahead of time.
Yeah, we did. We did great. I'm just thinking right now, like I was literally bawling at your wedding. It doesn't even feel real.
I know. It feels like it was a distant memory.
Yeah.
Like it was so much fun.
Yeah, it was.
Like it was the best day. It couldn't have gone any better. It was just amazing.
Yeah. And obviously it was your day, but it was pretty insane. People coming up to me like, I love you and Lauren's podcast. I was like, this is weird. Like it was so exciting, but
That's
I was like,
awesome.
This is so crazy.
Because so many people would be like, okay, which one's Nora? So I would point you out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go say hi.
I was the one bawling in the line of bridesmaids.
I'm so excited to get pictures back and everything.
I know, they're going to be so pretty. Oh my gosh.
Man, it was just amazing.
She got married in like the mountains of Luray, Virginia.
And the venue was just beautiful. Mm-hmm. And we had the weather actually cleared up. Like it was supposed to rain, but it didn't. So we had really cool clouds in the background of everything.
Lauren is so calm. I was like, wow, if this was me, I would have been panicking like crazy. But the wedding planner goes up to her and she's like, okay, so it's a light sprinkle outside right now. And mind you, it's like 10 minutes from go time for the wedding. She's like, okay, about 10, it's light sprinkling. We need to have a backup plan. So just giving you a heads up. Right now, we don't have to move it inside, but we might. And you're just like, okay. And I was like, oh my God, I had to move the wedding inside. What are we going to do?
And then we got so lucky. So it stopped raining. So that was our like good luck rain.
Yeah.
And like the seats didn't get wet or anything. But yeah, and then it was just,
it worked so well. Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. And I feel like when there's a slight overcast, it's better pictures.
Oh yeah. The clouds look awesome.
Yeah.
Like I was showing people at work and they're like, oh my God, like look at how pretty the sky looks. Oh, I have to tell you. So I come into work on Friday. And one of my trainers pulls me aside. He's like, hey, we have to go talk to the team lead about training. And I was like, okay, fine. So we come back. Everyone had gotten cake, cupcakes, fruit, flowers, and everything all at my desk. Aww. And we all had like cake to celebrate my wedding. And it was so sweet.
That's so nice.
It was amazing. I was like, oh, no one's ever done this for me at work before.
That's so sweet. Yes, it's always good to like work somewhere where they do things like that.
Yes.
Because it's so easy to work somewhere where no one cares. So
I've worked at those places.
Yeah, I think everyone has before. It's bad, but that's so awesome.
It was very sweet.
Yeah.
So Nora, do you have any updates about life? Because we haven't seen each other in forever.
I'm trying to think. Honestly, like this past weekend was the first time Ian and I stayed home with our dog in probably a month. We've just like had her stay with family because we've been so busy, and she loved it. We just chilled with her. We got so much done in our new house. We donated like 10 bags of stuff to Goodwill. Vacuumed probably 5 pounds of dog hair throughout the weekend.
I feel that.
So it just felt good. Like it felt really good.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, now that we're done reminiscing about the good days, let's get into some true crime news. So I am sure a ton of people have heard about Robert Durst. So a quick update. He was recently found guilty of a murder that he committed in 2000. So a little background. On December 23rd, 2000, he shot and killed his friend Susan Bierman. Durst's wife went missing in New York in 1982, and when he was looked at as being a suspect, Bierman gave him a false alibi. Well, years later, Bierman decided to talk to the police about this fake alibi she had given, but was never able to because she was murdered.
Yep.
So this is the super, super short version of the whole thing, but there is a documentary called The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, that will provide an excellent background. I think it's on
Netflix.
all your all your
so
main
good.
places.
I like it.
I haven't watched it yet.
I loved it.
So Durst ended up receiving a life sentence in prison without a chance of parole at the age of 78. So he's an old man.
Okay, and you know what? Have you seen pictures of him recently?
He looks so frail.
He looks so frail and old. I feel like my first gut reaction was I felt bad for him, but then I realized like the horrible things he's done.
Exactly.
And I think he's carried the weight of that, and everything's been coming to light, and he's just completely deteriorated. Like he looks bad.
Good.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's bad to say, but you know.
I mean, he's done so much bad.
He has.
Like, it's about time he's getting his sentence, so.
And then I'm sure people have also heard about the Zodiac Killer.
Yes.
So apparently it was believed that we had found out who it was, Gary something or other.
Mm-hmm.
But Mr. Gary died a couple years ago. But then the FBI, I think, or someone came back and said that that was actually not true, and they actually didn't know who the Zodiac Killer was yet. So who knows?
That made me think of Brian Laundrie for some reason, which I said his name wrong before. Sorry, it's not Landry, it's Laundrie. Have you heard about like Dog the Bounty Hunter?
I love Dog.
Okay, I like it, but also I'm hoping that he's not interfering with the case. His updates and everything, I think it's so funny that he's going in the swamps in Florida. But
Dog
I'm like, okay,
great.
Dog, just don't get in anyone's way and do your thing. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yes, so yeah, we'll keep updating with that too, but I don't think I think it has been officially classified as a manhunt now for him.
Yep.
At least when we're recording this, so.
It's been a month that he's been missing. Over a month. That's crazy.
It's pretty bad. And he has outdoor skills, so if he is out in the wilderness, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I really do wonder if he's alive.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was Lauren's dog, not me.
We're all struggling here. I'm drinking tea. My allergies have gotten really, really bad. So if you hear a little clinking in the background, it's my tea.
Oh.
All right. On to Nora's topic. So I just want to thank you for this wonderful topic, Nora. I'm not typically a squeamish person, but as I was going through these different methods, I was like, what the hell is wrong with people? And I would read something and I was like, okay, I'm not going to talk about this one.
Yeah.
And so there are quite a few that I was like, I can't.
Okay, honestly, I wish I had that sensor. I was like, I'm just going to do it. So here's a quick trigger warning. This episode, if you have a weak stomach, don't listen. If you don't like hearing about torture, don't listen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And yeah, so some of the methods we'll talk about today were meant to kill the victim. But most times these methods were used to receive a confession, to punish, to extract information, to humiliate, or just to hurt the victim. A lot of times they would also get super infected and die from the infections. So there was just like no way.
Or have like long-lasting lifetime effects from it. Really messed up stuff.
God, just who thinks of these things?
I know.
Like, how can the human mind think of something as horrible as some of these? I just don't understand.
I don't either. Oh, gosh.
So I looked up the actual definition of torture.
Ooh,
so from Wikipedia, it is the deliberate infliction of severe pain or suffering on a powerless victim. To be considered torture, the treatment must be inflicted for a specific purpose, such as forcing the victim to confess, providing information, or to punish them. So pretty much exactly what was happening during the Middle Ages. And the medieval period lasted for about 1,000 years and spanned between the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the Renaissance. So that's pretty much when all the messed up, scary, dark age medieval things happened.
Yep.
All right.
What a time.
I'll jump into this. So the first one I chose to talk about is being hanged, drawn, and quartered. So in medieval England, high treason was the most serious of crimes. If one was convicted of this crime, their punishment had to fit. So the method of being hanged, drawn, and quartered was born, which combined several different forms of torture. Good.
Yeah, great.
So in this process, drawn has two meanings, but the first was that they would be drawn to their final destination by being tied to a horse and dragged through the streets. The second definition of being drawn is when a person's intestines would be taken out or drawn out of their body.
While they're alive?
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to kill you first.
Ew.
Sometimes the person would only be drawn as in dragged. Other times, they would also have to receive the second form of being drawn. Once at the final location, the person would be hanged. Pretty self-explanatory, but the person typically wouldn't die here. The executioner would hang the person just long enough until they were on the brink of death.
No.
And just at that point, the person would be released, still very much alive. Sometimes the order would be switched. So sometimes the person would be drawn, then hanged. Other times they were hanged, then drawn. Kind of depended on how the people felt that day. So this is when the real horror of the punishment happened, the quartering. A fire would be started and the victim would be castrated. So his genitals and sometimes his intestines would be thrown into the fire.
Oh my goodness.
Next, the victim, usually a prisoner, would be decapitated. Okay, and this reminds me of The Office, as horrible as it is. There's an episode where his old boss gets decapitated and Michael goes, his kappa was detated. And that's all I could think about when I was writing my notes, and I felt so bad.
You know, it's hard to unthink things
but
once you think it.
I love that show, and I had to. So after that, the person would be quartered, again, self-explanatory. The body would be cut, or more often chopped, into 4 chunks. So get it, quartered, 4. These chunks would be thrown into a, quote, boiling concoction of spices. This kept the animals away from the body parts in order to display the body publicly. Did you hear that noise?
Yeah, that was weird.
Something like knocked in my kitchen. That was kind of creepy. So this was usually, the displaying of the body was usually used as a deterrent for people to see what would happen if they were to commit high treason. Baba. I love you.
I think he understands and is upset by what we're talking about.
Do you understand? Do you understand torture methods? So this was a common practice throughout Europe, though many only associate it as a British punishment, but it happened all over Europe. So in the 1290s, there was a man named William Wallace who essentially committed treason when he tried to secure British freedom from the English. So the film Braveheart from 1995 actually depicts his execution. Wallace was a leader in the wars for Scottish independence, but he was captured by the English. His form of quartering may be closer to what others think when they think of this term. So each of Wallace's arms were tied to a different horse, and his legs were tied to different horses. All of these horses then ran in different directions, resulting in his limbs separating from his body. So this form of quartering was usually reserved for those that the king hated the most. So that kind of sucks. But another source says that Wallace had to endure all the aspects of this execution style. So he was dragged to the final site, hanged but cut down before death, then his genitals were cut off and his entrails were pulled out. He was then beheaded and quartered. His body parts were then scattered around the country to serve as a warning of what will happen if you go against the king. This form of torture was still in practice for over 500 years after his execution and wasn't outlawed until 1803, when Edward Despard, being the last official person to have been reported of being executed, was executed this way. Despard had been a British soldier and had been in Honduras pushing for racial equality, which upset colonists because why should anything be equal? And he was sent back to London where he was imprisoned. Evidence states that while imprisoned, Despard somehow got involved in a plot to assassinate King George III, though that evidence is a little sparse. Though this was still a common form of execution in 1803, it had started to be considered barbaric, so instead of the full thing, Despard was only hung and beheaded. Well, not only, but you know.
Yeah.
Someone was sentenced to this torture in 1867, but the punishment was never actually carried out, and in 1869 it was officially abolished.
Wow.
Yeah.
Took them about time.
Right? Like, hundreds and hundreds of years.
That is savage.
Like, gross. It's so bad. It's so bad, Nora.
Can I just say that when I thought of doing this topic, I can honestly say I did not think it would be this bad. Like, I thought it would be like, oh, the person was hanged. Different things like that. No, it is insane.
I know. Some of the things when I was researching, like I said, when I need a break from work, I sometimes research things. So think of how I had to search this topic without saying, like, medieval torture methods. I would go, like, medieval methods and like trying to find like
medieval methods of punishment,
right, like ways that I could click so that I could get to where I needed to go without it being like a search. And then there would be pictures.
Yes,
and
the
I'm
pictures.
Like, I'm trying to read some of these things, and the pictures come up, and I'm like, oh my god, who's gonna walk behind me as I'm looking up this horrible picture? But I don't do a lot of research at work. I just want to throw that out there.
No, you wouldn't.
I only do it when I need like a 5-minute break.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I do the real research at home where I don't mind what websites I click on.
Exactly.
All right, Nora, what horrible method do you have?
Okay. So, we're going to talk about the Spanish donkey.
Oh, God.
Did you come across this?
Oh, yes.
You did?
Oh, yes.
Is this the one you avoided?
One of them, yes.
Not me. Okay. So, a man named Father Gomez was an inventor who designed torture methods. He was denounced as a heretic during the Spanish Inquisition after designing a new torture device called the Spanish donkey, also called the wooden horse or wooden pony. Not to be confused with the child toy. You know? It's not that. The Spanish donkey is a torture device from the Middle Ages, which was shaped like a wedge or sort of like an upside-down V. The victim is seated on the pointy part of the upside-down V, and weights are tied to their legs. With enough weight, the V eventually slices through the victim's body.
You don't like it.
I can't even.
These are going to be fun pictures you get to post, huh?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So there's pictures online of the Spanish donkey. They actually are in museums and stuff. Like, they still were preserved. It's just so crazy. Typically, the victim would actually be pushed throughout town on the Spanish donkey.
Ah.
So it wasn't clear how this happened. What I think is that they would tie a rope to the end of it and pull the person. But I didn't see wheels in the photos of them, so I'm not exactly sure. But I'm guessing they had different versions with wheels because they literally would pull them throughout the town.
And then think of them having to go on like cobblestone.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Oh.
It's not like they had nice
paved
cement.
roads.
Like, no, that's not how it was.
Oh.
So that way, with them on it being ridden around, the victim could be both tortured and humiliated.
Because they loved their humiliation.
Exactly. The victim would usually have their hands tied behind their back as well during the whole thing. So there's another version of the Spanish donkey where persecutors put spikes on the saddle of an actual horse and forced the victim to ride the horse.
Stop.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
God.
I literally almost had to stop researching this one because I was cringing so hard at like how painful that would be.
I can't even imagine. Who thinks of these things?
I know.
Like, who is just sitting up and this is the way that I'm going to hurt this person?
I know.
Like, what?
I know. So, sadly, the Spanish donkey was primarily used on women.
Of course.
And I'm guessing it was because, if she was found either having an affair or premarital relations, which, I'm sorry, but it takes two people to do that.
Uh-huh.
So,
two to tango.
Exactly. The condemned women were forced to ride on the Spanish donkey while naked. Persecutors would attach stone weights at her feet to inflict more pain and to prevent her from falling. As the additional weight gets heavier, the device would slowly cut the women in half through her genitals. Isn't that so wrong?
That's horrible.
Horrible. But this is the reality. Like, this is what people did, and it's so hard to fathom.
And there were so many things, too, that were targeted just at women.
Oh,
and I was
yeah.
like, this is stupid.
Yeah. This is like a more of a psychological form of torture, but the scarlet letter A, how they would have women wear that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's, yeah. Well, not the same, but like,
yeah.
Still a form of, yeah. A similar device was used by Union officers on Confederate prisoners during the American Civil War. So way more recent.
Yeah.
Like, hello, that's so wrong.
Like times, you don't think the Civil War would be considered like using things from the medieval times,
I
like
know.
the Dark Ages.
Yeah. So sources noted that it was typically used on male prisoners during the American Civil War, and they were usually often tortured until they passed out, and then it would leave them crippled afterwards.
Oh.
Milton Ashby Ryan, who fought in the American Civil War in the Co. G. 8th MS Regiment, don't know what that means, but if you know what that means, that's awesome, later recalled seeing the Spanish donkey being used, and he said, quote, "There were some of our poor boys, the little infraction of the prison rules, riding what they called Morgan's mule every day." So see, it's a different word for it, but It was the same thing.
Yeah. "There
was one mule that did the worst, standing stock still. He was built after the pattern of those used by carpenters." No.
Roy is really excited to see Nora. He hasn't seen her in a while, so he's like obsessed with her right now.
So crazy. That was one mule that did the worst, standing stock still. He was built after the pattern of those used by carpenters. He was about 15 feet high. The legs were nailed to the scantling, so one of the sharp edges was turned up, which made it very painful and uncomfortable to the poor fellow, especially when he had to be ridden bareback. Sometimes with heavy weights fastened to his feet, and sometimes with a large beef bone in each hand.
What's a beef bone?
I think it was just like something.
Heavy bones.
Yeah. Maybe like the legs or something.
Maybe.
I don't know. But it was just to add weight, so that it hurt more.
And probably like humiliation too.
Yeah. This performance was carried on under the eyes of a guard with a loaded gun and was kept up for several days. But it wasn't the whole entire day. Each ride was like 2 hours or so, unless the person fainted and fell off the horse from the pain and exhaustion. Very few were able to walk after this hellish Yankee torture, but had to be supported to their barracks. End quote.
Oh.
So this was like primarily used by the Union, like I said.
Yeah.
So that is the story of the nasty Spanish donkey.
That's horrible.
I hate it so much.
Oh.
Ugh.
All right. So another horrible torture method was often used as a form of execution. So it was called Ameerment. So this was a popular form of capital punishment during the medieval times and was often used across various cultures. So Ameerment was enclosing a person in a small space where their only escape was death. No, I don't like this. So they would be sealed in a coffin-like box or enclosed and sealed into a wall or other small confined space. So in Latin, the word Ameerment literally means to be walled from within.
Okay, I'm reading this book called This Tender Land. It's a really good book. And if you read about it, there's an orphan and it has a similar situation to that.
So Edgar Allan Poe wrote a short story called The Cask of Amontillado. I didn't look up how to say this. It was about a man who lured his enemy into the catacombs. When the enemy was down there, the man chained him to a wall and then sealed him into a tomb using bricks, leaving him there to die. So the earliest believed use of Ameerment was during the Roman Empire, where it was a form of punishment for the Vestal Virgins, who were known as a class of priestesses. So these women would be from honorable and respected families and made a vow to chastity. They promised to honor Vesta, the goddess of home and family. If any Vestal Virgin broke the vow they made, their punishment was death.
That's a lot of V's.
I know.
Vestal Virgin broke the vow. Sorry.
So their punishment would be death, but Vestal bloodshed was legally and religiously forbidden. So in order to sentence the women to death in an acceptable way, they decided to use Ameerment because it wasn't actually anything that, drew blood. So a small vault would be made by the Vestal, and it would contain some food and water. The woman would be led into the vault, locked and boarded up, and left to die. So during the medieval times, this was a popular punishment within the Roman Catholic Church. This was the main form of punishment.
You mean religious people do bad things?
No, Nora.
Oh, I thought that's what you meant.
No.
It must have been
never. I love your laugh.
By the way, my joking is because this is so morbid and uncomfortable.
We need to yes.
It's not laughing at the people. It's
gallows humor.
Yeah.
You have to,
Exactly.
So, this was the main form of torture and punishment among nuns and monks who had broken their vow of chastity. It was often reserved for those who expressed heretical views, so what you talked about with your last person, so views that went against the Catholic Church in any way. The nuns and monks who were punished with this would be sealed in a small room with only a small opening in order for them to receive food and water. They would have literally no contact with the outside world and would be in this isolation until they finally died. This was known as, and I don't speak Latin, so this was known as vade in pacem, which meant go into peace. Some of the rooms that these people would be sentenced into would be small spaces that would be bricked up with the person inside. So they would literally see their space being closed off from the rest of the world forever.
No.
Yep. Sometimes, and only sometimes, this form of punishment would be used as a temporary punishment. But other times, and more often than not, it was used as execution. So the most notable of those who died by this form of punishment was King Richard II. He was born in 1367, but by 1400 he had died under mysterious circumstances. Many believe that he had been immured in the Pontefract castle and had died of starvation. In Augsburg, Germany, in 1409, 4 Bavarian clerics were immured. They had been found guilty of the sexual abuse of children and were sentenced to be immured. I really can't say I feel bad for them, though. So each man was sealed inside of a wooden coffin, which was then suspended inside of a tower in the Church of Augsburg, where they had been clerics. So this is where they had done their stuff. They were left up there to starve and die. In 1885, the skeleton of an adult was found in the walls of a church in Hollingsworth, England. And who knows how long the skeleton has been in those walls. It was just found in 1885. Bubba, here, come outside. So if you thought that this punishment faded out in the 1400s, you would be wrong. So in 1903, only 118 years ago, a traveler named M.E. Hume Griffith was traveling through the Persian Empire, which is now Iran, when he witnessed this punishment. He recalls hearing men who had been sealed inside of stone pillars crying out for help. Griffith spoke of Ameerment and said this about it, quote, "The victim would usually be put in a half-built pillar, and sometimes, if the executioner wanted to be nice, they would pour cement on the victim to make sure they died quickly. But if there was air coming through the bricks, the victim would be heard screaming for days for water for days at a time. And if they especially wanted the victim to suffer, the victim would go down head first." Another incident of Ameerment was recorded in 1906. Haj Mohammed Mesfoui was a Moroccan serial killer. It was reported that he had killed 36 women. He would drug them, then behead them with a dagger. So originally, Mesfui was to be crucified, but too many foreign officials intervened, so under the Moroccan justice system, he was sentenced to Ameerment. But first, he was publicly whipped and flogged in the market. Apparently, people would pour vinegar and oil into the wounds to allow him to be whipped the next day.
Oh,
I don't know how that works, but I guess maybe it healed it just enough.
oh,
I'm not
that's
really
so
sure.
wrong.
Well, but he, like, raped and killed women.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
it's like an eye for
I
an eye, but at
know.
the same time, like, he's bad.
I know.
Yeah.
All of it's bad. On the day his execution was to be carried out, thousands of people gathered to watch. Mesfui was to be walled up in the city of Marrakech alive. And yes, I looked that up. He was put into a 6-foot-high, 2-foot-wide, and 2-foot-deep hole, which would be 1.8 meters high, 0.6 meters wide, and 0.6 meters deep. Chains had been put on him in order to keep him standing upright the whole time. He was left in that hole with no food and no water. While he was in there, it is said that he was screaming for death. So while these methods mostly were used as a form of execution, it was still a form of inhumane torture that people during the Middle Ages... What is happening? That people during the medieval ages and after had to endure.
Okay, that is like slow torture.
Yeah, that one's
because
a real
they
bad
said, like,
one.
yeah, well, they tried to help by putting the cement in, but if the cement had too many holes, then it was a
Yes.
super slow torture.
And, like, they would even bring you just enough food and water or leave you
Oh,
with just
gosh.
enough that, like, you know, you're gonna die here. So is it like, do you eat the food and water you have? Do you not? Like,
that reminds me of the Holocaust.
oh my God, yeah.
Oh, that's so
It's
wrong.
horrible.
Yeah. Okay. My next one is short and not sweet. So, the knee splitter. The knee splitter was a method of torture primarily used by the Spanish Inquisition, again, like my last torture method I talked about. So it was about around the 1530s time frame. The condemned man's knee was positioned between two wooden bars fit with large nails. To obtain confessions, so it was a method of finding out information, they slowly tightened the bars with a screw. The device contained more than 20 nails. And sometimes it would be up to 20, a little bit less than 20. It could be as little as like 5. But they would I think they would just try to put as many nails in it as they could.
Why and how
I
and
know.
who thinks of this? And
Horrible.
I just don't get it.
Absolutely horrible. And if you think about it, like looking at the knee splitter, it was like a engineering tool of that time.
Yeah.
Someone smart designed that, but it was like putting their memory or putting their skills into horrible use.
Yes.
You know?
Using their skills for evil and not
Yeah.
for good.
Exactly. So like I said, the device contained around 20 nails, sometimes a little more, but around 20. As the device tightened, it would crush or split the victim's knee, leaving them completely crippled. So they don't want to kill the person because they need to find out information, but they will leave that person completely damaged. To give you a visual of what the device looked like, picture a monster showing its pointy teeth. That's literally what it looks like. It's like a monster showing its teeth.
No thanks.
And of course, I'll post a picture of it in all of these
You must, yes.
methods. But yeah, and it's a monster that has a death grip on your knee. Even though the name implies that the device was only used for splitting knees, it was also used in other body parts.
Oh, Nora.
It was used on other body parts, including elbows, arms, and even lower legs.
Nora.
There were many variants to this torture device. Some claws were heated beforehand to maximize the pain. Like they would probably like light a fire and put it under the nails to make it super hot. Others had dozens of small claws that penetrated the flesh slowly and painfully.
Oh my God.
I know.
Who thinks of this?
I know. This torture method very rarely caused a direct death, like I said.
Of course.
But it was often followed by other more painful methods if the victim refused to cooperate.
Of course.
Ugh. And by the way, the people who would have this torture method done to them would be 100% incapacitated the rest of their life.
And what was like the reason? Just because they needed information?
When
or
it was a
something?
way to get information. So it was not intended to kill, and it wouldn't kill unless it, it was probably rusty nails, so it could make them infected.
Yeah. And I bet like things weren't that clean back then.
Exactly.
So I assume infection was like a common thing.
Exactly. I don't think they had tetanus shots back then.
I had to get one after I got bit by a freaking dog.
Never. never again. That was, yeah. So that is the knee splitter.
The knee splitter. All right. So the last one I have today. To be brazen means to be bold and not have shame.
Beautiful.
But its other definition is something made of brass. That is exactly what this device was.
I don't want to know.
The Brazen Bowl was a torture device designed in ancient Greece. So according to history, these are going to be some names. Perillus, who is from Athens, invented this device between 570 and 554 BC. Mm-hmm. He proposed the invention to the tyrant of Acragas, Sicily.
Nailed it.
Phalaris. It was meant to be a new means of torturing before executing criminals. So this Brazen Bowl, also known as the Brazen Bowl, Sicilian Bowl, or Bowl of Phalaris, was designed to be the same size and form of an actual bowl, but the insides were hollow.
Ugh.
The criminal would be locked inside of the device, and a fire would be set under the bowl. As the bowl was heated up due to the fire, the person on the inside would begin to cook as the bowl began heating.
Oh, what?
An apparatus of tubes and stops was placed in the head of the bowl. This would convert the prisoner's screams to sound like the bellowing of an angry bull.
Again, who invented this?
Right? Like, this is such a genius, invention.
Yeah.
If it were used in a good way. Like, cooking meat for the village. I don't know. So, according to legend, when the bowl was finally opened after the burning, the body inside would be charred. The bones of the victim then, quote, shone like jewels and were made into bracelets. So, Perillus was the one who tried to sell this invention to Phalaris. So I'll call him Purr and Fa.
Okay, cool.
So when Purr was describing the sound system of the bowl, he said, quote, his screams will come to you through the pipes as the tenderest, most pathetic, most melodious of bellowings. Fa was disgusted by the description that Purr gave, so he asked Purr if he could show him how the sound system worked. Mm-hmm. Well, Purr was stupid, and wanting to show Fa his invention, he climbed into the bowl.
No.
Once he was
invented it!
I know. So once he was inside, the bowl was sealed, and Fa lit the fire underneath, wanting to hear the screams become the bellowing of the bowl.
No.
But right before Purr could die, Fa pulled him out. It sounds so weird saying Purr and Fa. But then Fa ended up throwing Purr off of a hill. So he put him in the bowl, had him suffer a little bit, and then threw him off of a hill.
Wow.
But other stories say that he just left Purr in the bowl, and he became the first victim of his own device. Years later, it was said that Phalaris was actually killed in the bowl when he was overthrown as tyrant by Telemachus. Mm-hmm. Telemachus. Mm. Remember how one of the names of the bowl was the Bowl of Phalaris? Mm-hmm. Phalaris?
Yeah.
Well, that is because of Phalaris' strong association to the bowl. Because, he had his whole story, all that fun stuff, or maybe he died in the bowl. Mm-hmm. So the Romans also used this torture method to kill Christians. The most notable was Saint Eustace. Emperor Hadrian ordered him to be killed in the Brazen Bowl. He was roasted, along with his wife and his children. But the Catholic Church later discounted the story, so it didn't happen, obviously.
The only roasted things I like are roasted Brussels sprouts, not this kind of roasted stuff.
I hate it.
That's all I had to say.
Saint Antipas, who was the bishop of Pergamon, died this way in 92 AD. Then, in 287 AD, the device was used again by Emperor Diocletian of Pelagia of Tarsus, all really hard, I'm sorry, who was also a Christian. Mm-hmm. Some scholars nowadays question if this method was actually used. Some believe it was, while others believe that it was just a product of propaganda. Many different TV shows and video games, though, have also shown the Brazen Bowl. I was going to list them all, but there were just a lot that have showed this, so I was like, I'll leave that to them. And a lot of it was video games that I've never played, so I can't actually verify it. Yeah. But thankfully, this method has not been used in many, many years. And if we're lucky, it just was never used in the first place.
Yeah, for real. Hopefully it's just a myth.
But
I wouldn't count on it.
It's such a smart thing, too. And even if it is a myth, who was the person who thought of it to be a thing?
Yeah, because a lot of engineering probably was put into that.
And then that makes me think of, Criminal Minds, the TV show.
Yeah.
Who was their writer who was able to think of the horrible things?
Or called not Criminal Minds. Oh my gosh, I watch it all the time.
NCIS, Law and Order.
Law and Order.
Oh, Joe loves Law
Those
and Order.
stories are insane. I think that they do take some of them from real experiences.
Some are, yeah.
But some are completely they're not possible to be real because you would have heard about it,
Yes.
But it's just crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's who thinks of these things?
Yeah. That's so
I know.
So,
I don't like this look you gave
but
me.
not least, I will talk about the Iron version. Oh, I gotta say that again. The Iron Virgin aka the Iron Maiden.
Okay.
The Iron Maiden is not just an 80s metal group, although listening to their music may be a torture method to some people who don't like metal. But the Iron Maiden we are talking about today is a torture device widely believed to have been used in Europe during the Middle Ages.
Surprising.
Like I said, this contraption is known by other names, such as the Iron Virgin, which is a reference to Virgin Mary.
Interesting.
So have you seen the movie Matilda?
Of course I've seen Matilda.
Okay. So the Iron Maiden is exactly like that thing that Miss Trunchbull
That's
puts
what I was
the kids
thinking.
in. Yeah,
yes.
It's exactly like that. So in the movie, obviously the kids were not being killed.
Yeah.
But in real life with the Iron Maiden, yes, you are done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's like a super slow death, but you would definitely die of an infection if it were slow.
Oh, yeah.
But it was going to pierce like something that you needed to stay alive.
Yep.
So yeah. How it works is that the victim is forced inside the Iron Maiden, which is shaped like a coffin positioned right side up. The victim is impaled by the spikes when the torture device shuts on them.
Ugh.
Victims are pierced with the spikes but don't always die right away because sometimes they close the door on the victim slowly, which causes them to become infected by the wounds or bleed out or both. Although the Iron Maiden is commonly associated with the Middle Ages, there is no account of it being used during that period. Later research found out when looking at this.
Interesting.
So it's really questionable as to like if it was actually used as a torture device back then. But torture devices similar to the Iron Maiden have been described in texts written prior to the Middle Ages.
Of course.
A device
Good.
was, I know, a
Good.
device was described as a large locked box with nails in it. The nails, however, did not pierce the person unless they fell asleep.
Oh.
Therefore, the victim would stay awake and finally die of sleep deprivation, which sounds
all are
horrible.
absolutely horrible ways.
So it's like either you're going to die from sleep deprivation or you're going to fall asleep and die that way.
And then even if you like don't die right away from sleep deprivation or whatever, like you find a way to sleep standing up or something.
Yep.
Like, are you just going to be in there until you die?
Exactly. It's not like I doubt someone's coming to check on you if they're putting you in this thing.
Yeah. Oh, do you need any food or water?
The earliest account that we have of the Iron Maiden dates back to the 18th century and was written by the historian Johann Philipp Siebenkees.
Nailed it.
Johann claimed that a criminal was executed using an Iron Maiden in 1515, and also noted that the spikes inside the device were deliberately made in such a way that they were not long enough to kill him. Therefore, he continued suffering for 2 days before dying.
No!
So, short spikes, you suffer. Long spikes, you die right away because it pierces through, like, your important organs. Wild. Today, the Iron Maiden... I shouldn't say it that
so
cheery.
Today?
But if I don't, then I'm like, today, the Iron Maiden. So today, the Iron Maidens are displayed in various museums around the world, though these specimens are likely to have been made during the 19th century.
Oh.
So they're kind of like copycats, but they still were used. It's just they weren't the original OG Iron Maidens.
No.
I know. It was reported in 2003 that an Iron Maiden was discovered at the Iraqi National Olympic Committee compound in Baghdad. Which, I mean, who's really that shocked? There was crazy stuff going on there.
Yeah, but still.
I know. At one point in time, the head of this committee, as well as the country's football federation, was Uday Hussein, the son of Saddam Hussein. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so the story goes that the Iron Maiden belonged to him and that it was used to punish athletes who underperformed.
Oh, that makes the games not
Isn't
fun.
that, I know, and it's like, what? Like, you're damaging your athletes. They're
Like,
not going to
maybe
be
you
able
go
to
run.
play.
You
Yeah,
go
they're
play
not
the
going to be
games.
able to compete
if
you
you're
do
not better
that.
than them, maybe you
How
don't do
dumb
that.
are you? I know, so, anywho, that's the Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden. Yeah, that would be horrible.
Yeah.
I was reading one, I can't remember what it was called. It was some chair, but there were spikes on the chair and you would sit on it. And the thing was, the spikes pierced you in such a way that you wouldn't bleed out. So, like, they held all your blood in. So you would just get infections and you wouldn't bleed out until you, like, stood up.
No.
It's so bad.
So bad.
So if you want to look up some of the way more graphic ones than what we talked about,
go for it.
there are so many online you
Yeah.
can choose from, and you can see why we didn't choose certain things.
Exactly. There was definitely some I passed up
Like
on.
Jacob's Cradle,
Yep, I
The
did
Pair
see
of
that.
Anguish. There were just some bad ones.
Yep.
So yeah, we're not going to talk about any more of those.
You can go explore, just not on your work computer, please.
Yeah, maybe don't do it on your work computer.
Or just have like different words for when you're searching it.
Yeah,
Be
like
smart.
Medieval torture.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Do medieval methods. And then realize you can't get anything, so just wait till you get home to do it.
Exactly. Advice from Lauren and Nora.
Oh, you got what you got. All right. Well, I think that's all we have. Follow us on all of our socials. Recommend us to every single person you know.
Review us on Apple Podcasts because we love reading those, and we will read. Do we have another one?
I don't know. Do we?
I think we do.
Do we?
I think so.
Nora, I didn't know this.
Oh my god, I think we do. Sorry, stay tuned. Yes, we have one more.
From who?
It's by Shake That Grass.
Well, thank you, Shake That Grass. We really appreciate your review.
Thank you so much. That was so nice of you.
Well, keep listening and stay scary.
Oh, wait, really quick.
What?
So please send us your listener tales.
Oh, yes, please.
Because we want to do an episode, and we have like just almost enough to do a full episode, but we need like just a couple more. So please email us at scariestpodcast@gmail.com, and we're going to put your story in our episode.
And thank you so much to those people who have already sent them to us.
Yes.
They're so freaky, so fun to read, and we really, really appreciate it.
We're so excited to make an episode of that.
So yes, send us all your stories.
Yes, please. All right, guys, well, stay scary.
Stay safe.